it's amazing. I'm preparing the talk for Buenos Aires, and I just got the final numbers from the Israel National Transplant Center, showing that since the new law, you can see it here. Number for this entire year of live kidney transplant was 58, 2009 69, 2010 78, and this year 106. And this, it's almost doubling the number. Okay, and in parallel, the number of patients who went abroad for kidney has went down by 90%. As long as these transplants were fully reimbursed by the companies, Israeli would go there. The moment there's no reimbursement for this, that's it, no more Israelis. And I wish other countries would do that.
At this point, all roads lead back to China. I think people have, as collective groups, such as businesses, media, and government, vital and urgent decisions they need to make, because when something this horrific and this drastic has been going on for over 10 years and people are just turning away, mostly in exchange for a buck, I believe it's urgent and vital, and that people really have to stop and think when they're making a decision to turn their backs on one of the worst persecutions that have occurred in history.
As an individual, I can focus on human rights, I can focus on killing a Falun Gong for their organs, but governments have economic constituency, a political constituency, they've got military considerations, they have to balance off one against the other.
If diplomatic efforts fail, it is up to the medical community to do what it can in order to stop the Chinese colleagues from doing that. We, together with several American friends, have published several calls in international medical journals calling for a boycott or banning of any publication coming from Chinese physicians which are based on organ transplantation, the source of organs being executed prisoners. And hopefully, by concerted efforts of all medical associations around the globe, we'll be able at least to stop academically all Chinese physicians and to cut this chain of atrocities which is taking place in China.
I saw it as an example by which we would address the problem of transplant organ trafficking and tourism, that we recognize a problem and as a community try to address it, and hopefully the conclusions and our determination will become part of the bone marrow of anyone dealing with organ transplant donors, to know that the rights of the donors have to be protected, and that the recipients have to be protected, and that organs have to be recovered in an ethical fashion and allocated to people in an ethical fashion. The use of executed prisoners is a cheap trick. It's easy to get them, and as long as it's easy to get organs from executed prisoners, the pressure to develop alternatives will be less. The fact that it's abhorrent, it needs to stop, and it's a crime against humanity has been stated over and over. The WHO has said it. The question is, can they develop an alternative? But it's going to be a long time, I think, before they develop that in a manner that can address their needs. The Chinese government says that they're trying. I just have a sense that when the Chinese government really wants to do something, they do it.
They interfere with many things outside of their country when they're trying to silence people who are raising awareness about their many human rights abuses. What did I do about it? Well, I told people about it. I think that's the best way to address these kinds of things, is to make it known to people.
My own view is when you're talking about human rights activism, it's not one magic button that you press and all the problem just goes away. I think it's anything and everything, and different people can do different things. I mean, even if you just tell your nearest relative, I mean, that's something. You can write a letter, you can send an email, you can raise it with your member of parliament. A lot of people are members of non-governmental organizations, and they get them involved. And you get enough different people coming from enough different directions, then the whole thing collapses. I was involved in the anti-apartheid movement, and it looked as powerful now as the government of China is, and it just collapsed almost overnight. Or I was involved in pushing back the Iron Curtain. Again, it collapsed almost overnight. And I was also involved with the national security state problems in Latin America, and again, they've all gone. This kind of repressive power that you see in China, the Communist Party, it's very brittle. It's hard and brittle, and constant little pieces of pressure eventually just make it collapse all at once. mobilize enough people who know the truth, and all this sham of power disappears.
The more pressure we put on China, the more not just doctors, but governments and people make it clear to the Chinese authorities that this is unacceptable. I think the more effective we will all be. I genuinely would want to see Chinese enter the world of organ transplantation, become part of the international arena. They have a lot to offer. And I do believe actually that those progressive forces in China actually welcome press and professional and governmental attention that's been given to this, because I think it strengthens their hand.
People in China and all other countries, they are interact, right? And people in other countries can also influence Chinese people. If more people know the truth, to make efforts to rescue Falun Gong practitioners, it's equivalent to saving people there. If more people awaken, and they will quit the Chinese Communist Party. Although I experienced a lot and so much pain and so much torture, I do not regret. I think using my own experience to let more people know about the truth and to awaken Chinese people who was not aware about the truth, I think it's worth it. We call everyone's attention to the persecution that's happening in China of Falun Gong practitioners, because it's the most important thing today in the world. Why? Because you know what is Chinese Communist Party doing? The Chinese Communist Party is undermining the base for the existence of human beings. What's Falun Gong? Falun Gong is about the principle of truthfulness, compassion, forbearance. Without this principle, the world has no future.
A história já nos mostrou que os abusos aos direitos humanos não têm fronteiras.
What you see is that human rights violations are not self-contained. If you don't stop them, they spread. There's a tendency, at least initially, for people to say, that's not me, I don't have to be concerned. But human rights violations aren't just an attack on a defined group. They eventually just get a lot bigger. With the Holocaust, 6 million innocent Jews killed, but there was 37 million civilians killed, 31 of whom were not Jewish. And it's a direct result of the anti-Semitism, which wasn't stopped before World War II. It stopped the anti-Semitism. And, I mean, the 6 million Jews would be alive, but 31 million others would also be alive. Oppressors have a very easy time in oppressing their home constituency because they control the home territory, but they can't repress the whole world. So outsiders have the luxury of saying something that the people inside don't have the ability to say. And secondly, the repressive government feels it doesn't even really need the support of people inside because they can just throw them away if they don't agree. But they can't do that with outsiders. In a perverse sort of way, these repressive governments care more about what outside opinion is. Archimedes said, give me a big enough lever and I can move the world. And in Winnipeg, I'm far enough away that I've got as much leverage as one could possibly get. Part of the reason I got involved in this issue is that I'm not Chinese, that I'm not Falun Gong, that China's a long ways away, that this is a strange and different place. And I think if you're going to assert human rights, you have to jump across that kind of ideological, linguistic, racial, religious, spiritual divide to assert the unity of humanity. What we need to do is take that leap to help people who are victims who are not us. People have to see that they themselves are involved in this, that this threatens them, which it does.
Encontrei esta citação da Segunda Guerra Mundial. Primeiro perseguiram os socialistas e eu não os defendi porque não era socialista. Depois perseguiram os sindicalistas e eu não os defendi porque não era sindicalista. Em seguida, perseguiram os judeus e eu não os defendi porque não era judeu. Então, perseguiram-me a mim e já não restava ninguém para me defender. Locução: Débora Henriques, Spell.